Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our program Africa Today. We'll be bringing you the latest developments on the ground in the African continent. We'll start first with some news inside the African continent. On Saturday, President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi attended a celebration marking the event of the 74th anniversary of the Police Day. The Guard of Honor was reviewed and the national anthem was played. El-Sisi proceeded to the memorial to lay a wreath and the martyrs salute was played. The celebration included a performance titled Tale of a Nation, followed by a special segment dedicated to Colonel Rami Hillel. The celebration also included a performance about police martyrs, a documentary film showcasing the deployment of police forces and equipment, and another film documenting police training exercises. Foreign Minister Badr Abdel Ati arrived in Tunisia to hold bilateral talks with senior Tunisian officials aimed at enhancing bilateral relations and exchanging views on regional issues of mutual concern. Abdel Ati is due to participate in trilateral meeting of foreign ministers of Egypt, Tunisia and Algeria within the framework of the three-country consultation mechanism on Libya, with the participation of the United Nations Special Envoy to Libya, Hannah Teta. The meeting will focus on coordinating positions on developments in Libya and supporting efforts to achieve stability, preserving Libya's unity, sovereignty and territorial integrity, and to meet the aspirations of the Libyan people for security, stability and development. Foreign Minister Badr Abdel Ati stressed the depth of strategic partnership between Egypt and the United States, as well as the ongoing cooperation in various political and economic and military fields. This came during Foreign Minister Abdel Ati meeting with the United States Deputy Foreign Minister Christophe Lando. The meeting touched on the latest developments in Gaza, Sudan, Horn of Africa and the Egypt's water security. Foreign Minister Abdel Ati praised U.S. President Donald Trump's role to reach Sharm el-Sheikh's agreement, affirming the importance of working to implement the requirements of the next phase of Trump's peace plan. The meeting also tackled the situation in the Horn of Africa, pointing that any recognition of the so-called Somaliland is considered breach of the international law and violation of the sovereignty and unity of Somalia. Minister of Foreign Affairs Badr Abdel Ati held a high-level meeting with senior officials and staff from the ministry's Africa sector. The meeting was held as part of Cairo's push to sustain close coordination and sharpen Egypt's engagement across the continent. We have more in the following report.
Minister of Foreign Affairs Badr Abdel Ati held a meeting with the ministry's Africa department, framed as part of the routine outreach to Africa teams. The meeting carried a clear message: Africa remains a core pillar of Egyptian foreign policy, not a file managed episodically, but a strategic circle anchored in history, shared interests and a forward-looking vision for mutual benefit. Abdel Ati underscored what he described as the special priority the Egyptian state assigns to its African circle, emphasizing the depth of Egypt's historic ties with African countries and the shared interests that bind them. He stressed Cairo's commitment to strengthening relations on the basis of partnership, integration and mutual benefit. That framing is important, he said, because it positions Egypt's approach not as transactional diplomacy, but as a long-term engagement that connects political coordination with development cooperation and economic opportunity. He called for intensified efforts to expand Egypt's ground presence across the continent, with a particular emphasis on three strategic theaters: the Horn of Africa, the Nile Basin and the Sahel. These are regions, he said, where security, governance and development are closely intertwined and where regional dynamics can have direct implications for Egypt's national interests. He highlighted two priorities in that context: safeguarding Egypt's water security, protecting the safety of navigation in the Red Sea. By placing these issues alongside development, he presented a comprehensive approach, defending national interests while advancing cooperative agendas that serve wider regional stability. A major theme of the meeting was the expansion of economic cooperation with African partners, with an emphasis on trade, investment and delivery-focused projects.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and shed more light on this topic. We are delighted to have with us over the phone Ambassador Souad Chalabi. She is a former Assistant Foreign Minister. Good afternoon, Ambassador Souad.
Good afternoon.
Thank you very much for joining us today in Nile TV International. I would like to start by asking you, what are your expectations for the outcome of the trilateral meetings in Tunisia over Libya?
This is a very good initiative that will take place today and tomorrow between the Foreign Minister of Tunisia and the Foreign Ministers of Algeria, and of course Egypt. So the three countries have an interest in securing peace in Libya, and this is an initiative that Foreign Minister Dr. Badr Abdelati have initiated in order to, together with the United Nations, of course, and the representatives from the different UN agencies, in order to consolidate the Libyan stability.
Yeah.
So there is a focus on stability. There is a focus on of course, the support to Libyan people, and to restore Libya's unity and sovereignty, especially that there is a call for all foreign intervention to be stopped and to concentrate on regional strategy.
Yeah. Ambassador Souad, how do you weigh Egypt's role in setting crises in the African continent so far?
Well, as you know, Libya for Egypt is a very important strategic partner, and this meeting is part of active diplomatic relations that Egypt is taking to prevent any conflict, and also to secure the escalation of any escalation of conflict in Libya, and to destabilize the North African region. And this is part of our strategy in politics in the country.
Yeah. And how does Egypt plan to boost trade and investment with African partners, Ambassador Souad?
Well, as you know, that the foreign minister has held a meeting with all the representatives from the African department, and has focused on the partnerships and the economic integration and security with African countries, especially that Egypt is focusing on the private sector trade and investment in infrastructure. So there has been, in this meeting, there has been, the foreign minister highlighted economic diplomacy and investment, infrastructure and development, security and stability, strategic focus regions, capacity building and regional integration.
Yes, Ambassador Souad, what are the top priorities in the Horn of Africa and Nile Basin and Sahel?
Of course, our main interest is to secure peace and stability in the three regions in Sahel, and of course to avoid the conflicts that are producing political instability, and to secure in the Horn of Africa, to secure to strengthen the institutions that are there to have economic growth and regional integration with all the countries in the Sahel and in the Horn of Africa. The Red Sea navigation and water security are main interests for Egypt because of the Suez Canal, of course, and there has to be peace and security in the region of the Horn of Africa. Of course, Nile Basin countries is also our strategic importance in focusing on the relationship with the Nile Basin countries in order to also secure the flow of the Nile in a peaceful negotiation situation with Ethiopia.
Yeah.
And there is also an important development concerning the financial mechanism that will secure trade and stability in the three regions that we spoke about, the Horn of Africa, the Sahel, and the Nile Basin countries. There are many development projects that are on the agenda, emphasizing peaceful and stabilization in these countries that are important for Egypt.
Yeah.
in order and they are supposed to be development partners, and they are there to strengthen the regional integration and to respond to African aspirations for growth, connectivity, and opportunity.
Yes, of course. Ambassador Saad, Minister Abdel Ati emphasized safeguarding Egypt's water security and the Red Sea navigation alongside partnerships. How can this national interest align with mutual benefits for African countries in the Nile Basin and the Horn of Africa?
Yes, of course, water security for Egypt is a very important issue, and it is an existential paradigm in our strategy, and we want to secure the flow of the Nile because this is a very important issue for the future generations of Egypt. That is why the Egyptian foreign minister have highlighted this important issue, and of course Egypt is trying all the peaceful ways and means in order to secure the water security in negotiations with our partners in the Nile Basin countries and especially Ethiopia. So this is like a core national interest in our negotiation with Nile Basin countries.
Yes, Ambassador Saad Chalabi, the former Assistant Foreign Minister, thank you very much for joining us today in Africa Today. Ladies and gentlemen, back to our news, where the head of South Sudan's armed forces has given soldiers 7 days to crush the rebellion in the east that is a potential threat to the capital, Juba. The United Nations peacekeeping mission in South Sudan has called for an immediate cessation of hostilities in Jonglei and other areas experiencing violence in the country. Let's watch.
Tensions are boiling over in South Sudan, where the Sudan People's Liberation Army in opposition, or SPLAIO, has seized several areas in Jonglei state, putting the capital Bor at serious risk just 2 hours from Juba. SPLAIO leader and suspended First Vice President Riek Machar faces trial for murder, treason and crimes against humanity, charges he denies. Fears are growing that this could spark a full civil war in the world's youngest nation. This comes 5 years after the 2018 peace deal that ended a brutal war, killing nearly 400,000, but it's never been fully implemented amid ethnic strife. South Sudan's army has rushed reinforcements to Bor, a key town captured early in the last conflict. Chief of Defense Forces General Paul Nang Majok gave troops 7 days to crush the rebels. Ugandan soldiers are backing them up, with reports of up to 4,000 troops. National broadcaster SSBC says they're advancing now. Analysts say SPLAIO's push toward Juba aims to force Mashar's release. It follows President Salva Kiir sacking Mashar's wife, Angelina Teny, as minister. The UN peacekeeping mission UNMISS demands an immediate ceasefire. Acting head Kiki Biho calls for dialogue under the peace agreement. The UN Human Rights Commission is warning of airstrikes killing civilians and displacing thousands in Jonglei.
Welcome back. You're still watching Africa Today. And to Malawi, it has launched a 3-day cholera vaccine this week in a bid to curb the threat of a disease that claims tens of thousands of lives worldwide each year. It comes as officials have warned of a steady rise in cases across the country. Among the locations health officials for the rollout was the Chimono township, a densely populated area in the commercial capital. At least 17 cases have been reported in the city in recent weeks, with 1 death. And a recent United Nations report showed that Egypt maintained its position as the largest FDI host on the African continent, attracting $11 billion in flows. Let's watch.
An annual report published by the UN Conference on Trade and Development STAD said FDI flows to Africa were marked by significant volatility and regional disparities. It said Egypt's $11 billion inflows led the continent. Greenfield project announcements in Egypt and Cote d'Ivoire contributed to a 5% rise in the total number of projects across Africa, reaching 639. This performance comes despite a broader continental downturn that reflected a return to prior levels following inflated figures in 2024, caused by a single large-scale project. Meanwhile, inflows to Angola reached an estimated $3 billion, marking a return to positive values after 9 consecutive years of net divestments. Conversely, South Africa recorded negative inflows of $6 billion following a $7.2 billion divestment by Angolan American plc from Valterra Platinum Ltd. Mozambique recorded an 80% surge in inflows to $6 billion, driven by the acceleration of construction on major liquefied natural gas LNG projects. The global investment landscape in 2025 was increasingly shaped by data centers and artificial intelligence, a trend that posed challenges for lower-income countries.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, this brings us to the end of our Africa Today. Thanks for watching. Please stay tuned for more to come on Nile TV International.